I'm Angee.
And I'm Jaime.
I bet you're wondering why we are dressed like superheroes.
Yeah, I'm wondering. Why?
It's because therapists truly are superheroes.
His idea was spandex. I'm looking at you, Angee.
Okay, yes, and I don't necessarily have the body for it, but that doesn't matter because your self-worth is not wrapped up in what society says.
Welcome to the Shrink Show.
Get on my back. All right, so rewind. So, today, guys.
Hi, friends.
Another Angee guest.
Angee's killing it.
I am killing it. This is one of my closest friends, one of my favorite people in general, and I have been wanting to get her on the Shrink Show forever, but our schedules just didn't align.
And she does great at commenting on our YouTube.
Oh,
so
she does.
One of my favorite listeners.
Sheritha Jones. She is ultimately just one of the coolest fucking people you can ever talk to. And I think too often we aren't able or aren't willing to have, the kind of the difficult conversations of how race can impact our world and how it can impact, today's topic, our parenting and what that looks like from different perspectives. So it was kind of spurred on by Sheritha's column that she wrote, because Sheritha works for a newspaper, local newspaper. I don't know if I'm supposed to say it or not. Okay, the World Herald, the Omaha World Herald. And you've been there for what, 20 years?
Publicity.
I know, right? Yeah, they do. She works for the Omaha World Herald. You've been there 20 years, right?
27.
Oh, shit.
Holy
Even
shit.
longer. 27. And recently was promoted to their editorial board and gets to write some phenomenal columns. And the one that I'm referencing was your first column, yes?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm going to let you talk about that column because I just remember reading it thinking, oh, fuck, this is so good.
Ooh,
so
yay.
good.
What was it?
Well, it started in the editorial board. They have a meeting every week. The editorial board comes together and what type of editorial are they going to write? And so everybody just kind of brainstorms ideas, and whoever's writing it, he's just taking notes on what everybody says and everything. And I don't even remember how we got on this topic now, but there is myself. I work there. There's the assistant managing editor. There is the editor-in-chief, and then there's a community columnist, like someone who doesn't work at the paper at all. So you're getting their outside view. And his name is Jeremy Aspen. Shout out to Jeremy.
Shout out, Jeremy.
Jeremy is very funny, and he's very Republican, and he's very opinionated. But he's a different type of Republican now, based on everything that's happened in the world. So
quite a bit.
Yeah, so he's very cool to talk to. So he was saying something about, what were we talking? I don't know what we were talking about. But he didn't like the term white privilege, was what it was. So he says to me, well, a better way to say that is black disadvantage. And I said,
what?
I said, Jeremy, I will never say that. I mean, right, and he's not an asshole. He's
not arrogant.
It was Jeremy. You get
right.
You take him. He's funny at times, and then when he says stuff, and then he picked up right away on things. But we picked up right away on the things that bother the other person, and then we dig at that. So we have our own little. I get along really good with Jeremy, and maybe in another life, maybe I wouldn't. But no, it's we have a line of respect, and then sometimes we're just like, no, Jeremy. The whole board would be like, no. Jeremy.
Hashtag just Jeremy.
So I said, no, I would never say that. And I don't remember the topic that got us on that subject, but that got me thinking about my uncle when I was really young. And this is what the column was about. Okay. This is what I wrote about. So my uncle was an alcoholic when I was growing up. But he wasn't like a mean alcoholic. He was very mellow. And he dressed very nice. He wore 3-piece suits and pinstripe suits. And this is the late 70s, early 80s. You would be in a dashiki, really. If you were a black person, you're in your dashiki and your bell bottoms and your afro, And he had those too, but every day he wore a suit. But he did not work. I never saw him work. I saw him drink. He would go and walk to the corner liquor store, which every black community has, a liquor store right on the corner. Probably like 2 trips a day he would make around about the same time every day. It's like a 2-block walk. So I had this little friend, Crystal, and this is what I'm saying in the column. And Crystal was white, and Crystal came over every other weekend to her grandpa's house, which was in our little neighborhood. They were the only white family on the block. So Crystal would come, and because it was her mom's time, but her mom wasn't there. The mom would leave her with the grandpa, and oh yes, the mom's out.
Like, thanks, Mom.
She'd be out. But me and Crystal were best friends, and we'd play in the alleyway and stuff. And one particular day, or a few days it's happened, my uncle would be walking to get his liquor and walking back with his liquor, and the police would stop him because there were beat cops like then, and it's the same couple of cops that work the same neighborhood. So you know him. You know this is my Uncle Buzzy. His name is Uncle Buzzy because he drank.
Yes. See, I love. Let's just go ahead and just throw this out there, like fucking nicknames that are either ironic or spot on, like Tiny, calling the giant guy Tiny, or fucking Uncle Buzzy. Like, I knew a guy, we always called him Hollywood, because he knew everybody and he seemed to be like this famous person, but he wasn't. But he just knew everybody, so we called him Hollywood. We'd be like, hey, there's Hollywood. I want to get back to that. I always wanted a nickname like that. I never got it.
Now here's the tangent on that. This is horrible. So all this time, growing up, Uncle Buzzy is Uncle Buzzy because Uncle Buzzy drank. My mom's like, no, we called him that since he was a kid. What the fuck is that about? Why were you calling him that? That makes no sense. His name is Andre.
Since he was a kid, maybe they just knew.
Well, no, they called him Buzzy.
But maybe they knew on a soul level.
Or maybe he was probably drinking when he was a kid because my grandmother also used to drink.
Well,
so I still think it had to be from the drinking, because what are you calling somebody Buzzy for?
Unless he always acted like he was drunk. I don't know.
I think he might have been drinking.
I make jokes that my kids are drunk all the time when they're tired. I'm like, oh, they're drunk. I'm so sorry.
What if somebody actually believes you that they're genuinely
I think
drunk?
people's faces do get a little confused, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, look at them. One of them, they're like,
obviously
like they're
drunk.
Wolves. They're running around, crawling. They're drunk. It's also past their bedtime by an hour, but
Anyways.
Drunk or tired.
Yeah, same
Looks
thing.
the same.
Potato.
Uncle Buzzy.
Uncle Buzzy. So one time, me and Crystal saw the police stopped him, and when they stop a black man, you gotta walk in a suit in the middle of the daytime with this brown paper bag. No, it wasn't even out because he said you gotta tuck it. So it wasn't even out. So, and they know him and they know who he is. Stop him. Black man, you gotta sit on the curb. Why am I sitting on the curb? You put your hands behind you.
Why?
Why? Because they said so.
Because you're walking?
Yep. Same
Drunk?
thing you do every day.
Because your name's Buzzy.
Maybe so. Because they knew his name.
But they knew him. You said.
They knew him. So this would happen multiple times. One particular time it happens, her uncles, Crystal, we played in the alleyway. Her uncles lived on this side of the alley. And there was the alley. And then her grandpa lived over here. So we play right in the middle. Her uncles were raging alcoholics. They were the redneck, fight all the time. By the end of the day, every day, there were
shooting guns, hooting and hollering in the front.
By the end of the day, every day, one of them was beat the hell up. Every day, by the end of, sometimes they beat each other up. Sometimes their mouth got too slick in the neighborhood and someone would beat them up. Every day. So shirts off, all red, all that. That was their uncles every day.
Yeah.
This particular day, they stopped my uncle. This is what they're doing in their yard. They're fighting each other, fighting, boom, boom. And they stopped my uncle, who's not fighting, who's not even talking.
Right.
He's walking from A to B, trying to get back to the house, into the basement to listen to Marvin Gaye and Earth, Wind and Fire.
Right.
He's chilling.
Yeah.
Living his best life. Typical Tuesday.
Typical Tuesday. They stop him. He's on the ground. You know, we got to sit there in your suit, mind you.
Especially, like, if you aren't doing anything and you haven't done anything and you can compare yourself to another situation that is actively happening in front of you.
They continue to fight right
It's
there.
so easy to get so...
fighting right in front of that.
And
pissed
they know
off.
them as the police knew them as
They
well.
know.
They know their brothers beating the hell out of each other, and they're on their own yard. And this is me making excuses. Like, was that the reason? Because they're in their own yard.
Right, you're trying to make sense.
I mean, maybe.
How old were you watching this?
Oh,
12.
6 and 7.
Oh, you were
So,
Yes.
but that makes sense as a kid, like trying to make sense. Like maybe they were in their yard, and that's okay.
But
You have to find the
because you
difference.
don't want to think it's race related.
No, that's not true.
Oh.
At 6 and 7, I understand
Yeah,
what I'm
you
saying.
know.
I understand. At Crystal's house, her grandpa would always call me the colored girl.
Oh, shit.
This was 6 or 7. This is the 80s. It's
Yeah,
not the 50s.
no.
He always called me the Crystal's little colored friends over here.
Oh, shit.
And so I
Yeah.
read this poem, and I don't remember who it was by. Way when I was little, like 6, 7, 8, and it was by some black poet, and she was saying, you call me colored, but you get red when it's cold outside, and you turn green with envy, and you turn yellow when you're sick, and blue when you're dying, but you call me colored. Was the gist of the poem. I don't remember who that was by. I have to look it up. So no, I
know that poem. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I always understood it was race. I understood that at 6. I understood what I was seeing. So he sits there, and what are they checking? What are they running? His mother lives a couple houses. That's where he's going.
Right.
So they sit there.
I love that he still lived with his mother.
Talking to him or whatever, and oh, okay, you're good. You're clean. You can go. What? I'm good. Everything's okay. Everything was already okay.
I'm wearing a suit. And I'm picking up alcohol legally.
That you don't see because he tucked it here.
And, I mean, he could be... You said his mom was an alcoholic. Maybe he's picking that shit up for her.
But they didn't even see
Yeah,
that.
they didn't even see it.
Now, understandably, they know Buzzy, and they know he gets drunk, and they know he drinks much, so they know all that.
Right.
But you know where he's going, and you know where he's coming from.
But how
and then your articles told that story.
And how many situations does that happen in where they don't know the guy and it still plays out that exact same way?
Or worse.
Right.
Because this is what I didn't think about as a kid that I think about now with my boys. I didn't think about they could have killed him any one of those times if they felt like it. But he's a male dude. He's not doing anything. He was never doing anything anyway, mind you. He's not like bucking at them or trying to agitate them or run from them and sit on the curb. Right, I'm messing up my suit, but okay. And he sat on the curb.
Right.
So.
But he was also mellow and not that... He wasn't a pot stirrer.
Think about all the loud people you know. Me, you.
Right, I was going to say,
I never heard him raise his voice. What adult have you never heard raise their voice?
Especially when they're drunk, let's be honest.
And that's the type of drunk he was. Mellow. The more drunk you got, the more not up. He had friends that were the opposite. Right. He had these two friends, Norman and, what was his wife's name? Like Lucille or something. She was like 6'4". He was like 5'4".
Oh my God, I love this so much already.
They would stab each other.
Jesus.
And fight and do when they got drunk. But then when you see them in the morning, they're walking and they're
and she's this
giant
woman.
At the end of the day, she has beat the shit out of him.
Norman, do you feel safe in this relationship?
Blink twice.
From the fights I saw, she always won.
Oh my God. Yeah, because she was fucking 6'4".
She was like, bam, on top of the
fucking bottle, right?
Yes, they bottles, she had cuts, but no, she still always won.
You know, and honestly, I think that was the most impactful part of your story was you went from 6-year-old perspective of uncle with the police to now parental perspective of 2 young black men who are very kind, considerate,
yes, they are.
responsible, loving, and do what is necessary, to survive within society. Yet this is on the heels of all these stories of black men and women who were described similarly and are now dead because of those interactions. And I think that's what really not resonated because of my own experience, but resonated because I'm a fucking human and care about other humans, I suppose. Yeah.
And I thought that was the cool way to tell it from first. When I was a kid, this is what I saw. But like I said, it never dawned on me, what if they kill him? No, it's just like, that's stupid. Sitting there playing with Barbies.
As a 6-year-old, you just saw it as, this isn't right. That doesn't make any sense. But now as an adult.
Yes, I think about my boys.
What did you write when you said that?
So then I said with my boys, my biggest fear of them is that someone doesn't kill them. I think about that. I don't let it. I think as a black woman, I think it's just ingrained in me. It's not a keep me up at night every time. It's not that. It's just I worry about them.
Right.
They don't, and they're not in gangs. They're 15 years old. They go to school. They're honors kids. They don't even leave the house because they can't drive. So it's on me to even get them places.
Yeah, you're like, get the fuck out.
Right. And they don't care about going a lot of places. They're chilly. Is there food here? We're good.
Right.
Food, internet. Yeah. Cool.
They'll be downstairs chilling, and they go up to that room and shut that door. Then they're back downstairs chilling, back up to the room and shut the door.
But then it makes
and they're twins.
And they're twins.
Oh yeah, they're twins.
They're 15
So then it makes me curious, generationally speaking, what or do you know of your boys see that's the equivalent?
Oh, I think they see. I think they see all kinds of things, especially with what's going on in the world. Just what you see on TV or just what you see on social media. They're way more on social media than I am, so they're probably, So I know they see racism. They understand, but they're also very. I think they're a little different than me. They're very all inclusive, and everyone is everyone. There was a girl at their school when they were in elementary, and she's come to their birthday parties all these years, and they just, she's fluid now. I was like, what? Wait, she's fluid now? Yeah. Okay. And then they don't. We would have as children, I think, what does fluid mean? And then the parent goes, why? Because there's a girl at school that says she's fluid now. What does that mean? No, he's telling me. Yeah.
And then they're like,
this is what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't need to ask you anything. I know you don't know, Mom. So let me just tell you.
Fair enough.
Right. She's fluid now.
Cool.
And that's what we're doing. It's like, okay, so they're very, inclusive and however you are is however you are, however you were when we were in elementary, because they're with a lot of their same kids, all the way through, even in high school now, some of the same kids. Well, this is how they are now, and this is what they think, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, their personality.
Yes, their personalities are very opposite, but on that, they're very much the same.
Yeah.
Which is wild, because their personalities are very opposite. So I was writing, basically, I hope someone doesn't kill them one day for
just being black.
Just being black.
Walking down the street black.
Look at the things that going on now. Turning around in the wrong driveway. Oh, I just started driving. I don't know address is good. I'm knocking on the wrong door. Now you're shot,
Right.
Trespassing,
yes.
right?
Trespassing, walking after dark in your own neighborhood with your hood up. My one son, he keeps his hood up all the time, and it drives me crazy. I have told them, though, when you go into a convenience store, for instance, and you see this line right here, by the time your 1 foot steps over that threshold, you got to take that hood off. And I've even told them, take the hood off, find the camera, look directly into the camera so they can see your little boy face. You're a little boy.
But
they don't do that part, of course.
No, but
take the hood off.
Those words that they're hearing.
The fact that you have to explain that, and that's something that, for a lot of our white parent listeners, I think is really important to hear, because as a white parent, I don't have to have those conversations, nor do I even think
Right.
about having those conversations. I mean, the conversations I'm having are more about inclusivity and recognizing white privilege within yourself and using your quote unquote powers for good. But far too long, it was just, well, that's not even a conversation anybody should have to have. But it was, and it is still today. And I think that's the thing that's so impactful, at least for me as a white parent, recognizing how, white families, we don't have to have conversations about racism if we don't want to.
Right.
But a black family, an Asian family, a Hispanic family, whoever you are, you have to have those conversations about racism, whether you want to or not.
Absolutely.
And that is white privilege. Hashtag Jeremy.
And that's what the column was about. And so the title of the column was "Privilege is a Problem," and so all throughout the column, I'm talking about white privilege. The uncles in the yard, they had the privilege, and privilege is not about money. This is what
It's not about intelligence.
This is what Jeremy
It's not
said
about
was.
anything.
He says when you say
Except
white
race.
privilege to other white people, they get offended because some people struggle to come up. It's not about money. It's not about your income.
It's not about
It's literally about the color of your skin.
That's
It's the
it.
privilege.
Like
That's
that first inkling of a reaction. Just like you said, as soon as you cross that threshold, look into the camera. It's not about, they're coming in to probably buy something, just like the person behind
They could have all the money in their
But
hand.
it's I'm looking at the camera.
Because
Whereas
what I've told them is what they are gonna see
right.
is a big black man.
Yes.
Mommy. Oh my gosh, stop my phone. It's a Jana. Stop my phone. That's so funny.
Oh my
I love it. Mommy. Mom.
Just turn it off. Oh my
Mom! Mom!
I love that is...
I should have done that. Because that's how she is. Mom.
Mommy, Mom. Oh my God, that's Juno all the way. You know what, Jamie? I do want, and I don't want to interrupt
Talk about a tangent.
Sheritha's story, but I love your perspective of race as somebody who, you always kind of joked, but I think, within yourself, you felt like a white person without looking in a mirror because you were raised within a white household.
Yeah.
And you'd always joke and say, St. Patty's Day, let's go celebrate our heritage, our Irish,
I was raised
our Irish American
German,
heritage.
Irish Catholic family.
Right.
Well, it was only because when I was little, I obviously was raised in a white household, and I remember growing up though in elementary school, like all through kindergarten, first grade, second grade, I have like core memories of people just saying comments about my eyes or my nose or my face, or they'd point to families who clearly looked exactly like me but nothing like my family. And so I would always be like, my internal dialogue was like, I don't understand why people are saying my eyes look different, because I only outwardly saw white people.
Right.
I grew up in a white community with a white family. So in my childhood head, I thought I looked just like that.
Because you don't stare in a mirror all the time.
Say anything to you about...
So, see I know.
But that happens a lot
That's
within
a valid
white households.
question.
It
That's
does.
a valid question, but I mean, I always knew I was adopted. I always knew I was from Korea.
Right.
But
But that
my
doesn't
family
give you
always
that
said,
understanding.
well,
We don't see color.
love doesn't have a race. We don't see color. We're all the human race. So I thought, oh, cool, like we're all the human race. And I was like, I like that. That is so, like, how inclusive, how like, you love everybody. You don't judge, because at that point in my childhood, it was like, you don't want to be prejudiced. You don't want to judge others. So I was like, ooh, they're not judging. Like, that's so, like, look at them. But then I would go into the community and people saw race. People saw difference. People pointed out that my eyes look different, that my nose looks different, and that I don't look like my mom. And so I always that just confused me, because I was like, okay, well, I'm hearing that, like, we're the human race, but I'm not receiving that from others. And so it just never made sense to
And
me.
can I ask you, for the audience, those that pointed it out most of the time, what race were they more than likely?
They're all white, because white community.
Right.
That's where she was.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think that's important for, the listener who is white to really hear. And that's why within my household, the race conversations are about inclusivity and about the difference within everybody, and that you do have privilege and that doesn't make sense. And my kids are even like, I don't understand why, for Justin, who is a dentist, Sheritha's husband, father to her children, after the George Floyd stuff, my kids were like, I don't understand. And we're like, yeah, they just have this issue because of the color of his skin, just like Justin, is black, and that could happen to him. And my kids were like, but he's a dentist. Like, they didn't.
Right.
But he's a dentist.
Right.
Like, why would anybody do that to a dentist?
Right.
And that's what's so important, at least for white households.
It's phone show.
No, fucking phone show.
Sorry.
Mine's on Do Not Disturb. You fuckers are not prepared.
Good job.
White privilege. Hashtag white privilege.
Leave us alone.
No, but I think it's so important to recognize that. And I do want to say really quick before, and I'm interrupting you, I know this, and this is not my white privilege interrupting you, I apologize.
It's just Angee being Angee.
It's just me being me. But I used to, for those of you who are white and feel guilty when there are those conversations with white privilege, I think that guilt is important, because that guilt is what propels you to have those conversations. That guilt is what encourages you to look beyond that and to see how you can make a difference and how you can open those doors and you can initiate those conversations and use, that quote unquote privilege. Like, if you have a lot of money and you have a lot of friends that don't have money, you're going to pay for them to get into things because you want them to experience it too, so that they can be a part of it and maybe figure out how to get in themselves. So I think that it's really important to not shy away from it because of that guilt. I think too often white people do.
And that's the opposite of what Jeremy was saying. Privilege makes them feel uncomfortable, but saying black disadvantage makes them feel good about themselves.
Right? And that sounds so fucked up, because to me, it should be the other way around.
Yes.
It should. But anyway, so you were always commented on, but because it was around the time that race isn't a thing and we don't see color, I feel like there wasn't the conversation to prepare you for racism.
No, I've never had a conversation about racism. It was all like self-taught.
Wow.
Through experience and
Through
reading.
horrible experiences.
Yeah, through experience, and then like it wasn't until 7th grade until I met other Asians. And I was like, oh, you know what it's like for people to like point out your eyes or your nose. And I was like, this is fucking crazy. Other people fucking know what it's like. You know how people come up to you and assume you can't speak English, or assume that, you're from China, because that's the only Asian country that exists, apparently. And so, yeah, it was just self-taught. I mean, it still is. My family doesn't talk about race.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys this. That phrase, I don't see color. What do you think about that? What do you guys feel about that?
Okay, so I have two feelings. One, I think that is the goal in a sense. Like, color, not that I don't see color, because to me, I love color. And I say the more color, the better. Like, just in decoration style and obviously my hair. So to me, like, I don't see color as differentiating. Red is red, orange is orange, yellow is yellow, green is green. They all make a rainbow. So I don't see color can be beautiful in the sense that I don't see the difference. I see the difference, but I don't see how the difference matters. I think it's been, personally feel like it was almost like another form of systemic racism in trying to minimize persons of color, their experience, by saying, well, we don't see color, so now it's not white privilege anymore because there is no color, we're all the same, rather than taking ownership of white privilege and everything that has caused with regards to fucking the killing and owning of every other fucking race out there. And rather than atoning for that, it was like, well, there is no color anyway. Mm-hmm. It was kind of shady, but in a sense, could have been seen as, could be beautiful. I mean, if you ask people in like England, there isn't really color. It's just, that's George, right? That's Sally.
They have a lot of racism over there.
Do they?
That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
They speak.
then I'm fucking wrong.
What do you think?
I've never been there, so yeah, going based off what I've heard
On TV.
It's okay. It's okay.
So you had heard that originally growing up, but then as you got older,
I mean, I
it's
still
not
hear it
different.
to this day.
So
It's still,
because that's what's in your
Fox
household.
News is on, and that's what I hear.
You should talk about our professor.
But what do you think now about that first?
Well, so what's interesting the way you phrase it too is, so because it came from my family, I know they mean well. So the intention was, we love everybody. I know, as, and not speaking as a culture and like as a population who says that, but I know my parents meant well. They meant it as, we love you, and they meant it as we love you because you're our daughter, not because you're Asian, you know? So in my head, I'm like, I understand the intention isn't to cause more hurt, but I think it ends up hurting people's of color's voices because it minimizes our experience. Mm-hmm. And so my biggest thing is, you know, you can come at all colors, all races as I love you, but we can't minimize the fact that we do look different.
Right.
Right? But even like currently, going into how like currently they'll still say, we're just the human race, what's the big deal? You know, I know my dad's even said things like when they say like anything hyphenated American, African American, Asian American, you know, Mexican American, all the countries. He's like, they just want all these groups and that's segregating people more. And I go, it's not necessarily segregating people more. It's just so you understand where they are coming from. But, you know, it's still encompassing the quote unquote human race that you want to talk about, Dad. But it's also letting you know their experiences and lived experiences and generational experiences are coming from this place.
God, we should put European American on there.
And because that's, you know, that's what they argue too. They're like, we don't say I'm German American, I'm
But we should.
American.
There should be a European American. If you're gonna separate all you know, Asian American, African American, whatever, there should also be a European American. If you want that, you know, the we're all the same. Well, then fucking European, because I'm not Native American. I wasn't native to this land. My ancestors fucking came and took over. How fucked up that is, right?
So it just, I think the intention, at least from my family's perspective, not necessarily everybody in society, is the intention is there from a place of love, but it also minimizes the fact that, but I do look different, you know? I didn't come from your bloodline. I didn't come from Nebraska. So can we acknowledge that exists? Because it feels like it's very minimizing to my existence.
Well, I don't have people walking up to me and starting to speak German.
Languages. Yeah.
Right? Because you had that one guy who came up to you.
He started speaking Japanese and then he yelled at me for not being able to speak Japanese because I was the asshole.
Right. Like,
But then I had
and you were a
people-
teenager at the time.
I was a teenager, and that was a fucking grown-ass man. Probably in his 60s, 70s.
Oh,
like, he was old.
no, seriously.
Because he was like, well...
He was in the military. He was in the
in
Japanese-American
War. So
War.
it was okay because he was stationed over in Japan, so it's fine. And then it's great when people try to excuse that behavior. Or people who will approach me and that I've been asked, can I practice my Chinese with you? People, just out of the blue, they'll walk up to me and say that. They'll say, oh, like, my friend is Japanese and I know this. Like, do you know this? And I'm like, no. First of all, you're a stranger. Like, don't fucking talk to me.
It's horrible.
It's horrible.
But people just will come up to you and say the most outrageous things, I feel like. When you're a person of color,
Yes.
I don't think people will come up to white people as frequently to glamorize, like, how you look or what they think about you.
No, they don't. But I remember that example when we went to the bar and that one drunk ass chick called you Oriental and I was like, the fuck? And I got fucking pissed. And
Yeah.
Jamie was just like, okay, here we go
I
again.
know, you just pick your battles. And Oriental, honestly, isn't the least of the worst things I've heard. So I was like, you know, that's actually not that bad. Like, I'm not
Let me
offended.
tell you, I heard this was it 2021, I think, so still COVID-y, you know. And I was in the grocery store and I had my mask on and it was the 4th of July because there was this older white lady and she had on this caftan that was a flag.
It probably was a fucking flag converted
It
into
was
Yeah.
a red,
I
white,
hope it was
and
made in
blue.
America.
Yeah, thing. And so for whatever reason, and when I grocery shop, I put in both my AirPods and I was loving the mask. I'm like, nobody even knows what's going on with me in here. I'm moving
No
through here like,
interaction.
oh.
The best.
So she stops me. I got my AirPods in. Leave people alone with that.
No social etiquette, obviously.
She stopped me, tapped me or whatever she did. So I, yes.
Yeah, and it's always an annoyed like, can I help you, strange person?
I really want to put this back in and go about my business. So she goes, you are just a beautiful young lady. First, I have a mask on. What are we doing here? We're not even supposed to be talking. It's COVID.
What
Get away
is
from me. There's a
happening?
pandemic.
You are just a beautiful young lady. I had to stop and tell you that. And I hate these masks. You know, I guess you just want to talk. I really hate these masks. And if I saw a Chinaman right now, I'd shoot him dead. And
What? Wait, that took a dark turn. Was
Right.
not prepared.
Right. So I go, my mask is still up. I go, that's racist. I'm gonna go now. What was that? And the part that it wasn't even the shoot him dead, but shoot him dead? Not just like wound him. And why are you shooting him? And why is he a Chinaman? Any Chinaman? Any Chinaman? Which is the laziest way to call someone Chinaman?
And you're interrupting me as a black woman
Listen to my music.
to tell me that I'm beautiful and that you
And
want
I will
still...
shoot any Chinaman. Well, she didn't say any, but I took it as she said, if I saw a Chinaman.
I know. When you say A, I mean, you know. I know.
And so I go to get in line.
Oh my
I go to get in line. And I'm behind this other black girl. And then the lady is over in the next aisle. And so I say to her, I don't know if she was saying something to her. I said, she is super racist. Don't talk to her. She's like, what she said?
my God.
I said, she's going to stop me in the aisle talking about I'm pretty and she's going to kill any Chinaman. She was like,
That took a dark turn.
we're in Hy-Vee. And I said, that's why I don't come in Hy-Vee.
No,
Not that happens in Hy-Vee, but
inside of grocery stores.
But I love that you called her racist to her face. I also love that you warned other people against it. Too often white people don't do that. Even if they are familiar with color and racism, like they're too scared to do that to even other white people.
Mm-hmm.
Like my daughter had, my youngest, she's 3. Her favorite little baby dolls are her black little baby dolls. She just fucking carries them around and she hangs on to them. And the reason I've always gone out of my way to purchase babies and Barbies and everything of other colors, because I don't want just a bunch of white babies. But even with
Gross.
gross. But even when I was a little girl, I remember, and I don't know what year this was. I want to say it was 8 or 9, and I can't even imagine growing up. You know, when you grew up, there was probably little to no representation of your race when it came to dolls.
That's one of the things I said in my column. Me and Crystal are playing. Crystal had all the Barbie dolls. She'd come over and they were all white. All of them. And I was saying, we're sitting here, I'm playing in the alley with she's my best friend, but we're playing with dolls that don't look like me.
Right.
My uncle's handcuffed on the curb. Her uncles are beating the shit out of you.
Right.
Like, what sense does this make?
Right.
Like, I remember being like 8 or 9, and I grew up in a small town in Nebraska. We had one half black kid who was being raised by his white grandparents. Like, that's the literal, everybody else was all white, at least from what we could tell. And I remember going to the store, and there was a whole wall of these white blonde baby dolls and a whole wall of these black baby dolls. And my grandma was like, which one do you want? And I was like, well, I want the black one. I don't have any of those. I want that one. That's the one I want. So I got that one. And I always tried to have a lot of just a multitude of different whatevers in my toys. So for my kids, obviously. So my daughter had this little black baby doll, and I don't remember who the fuck it was, but they fucking saw her with her little black baby. They started fucking laughing. They thought it was the most hysterical thing that she had this little black baby doll, and wanted to take a picture that she had this for some. And I was like, well, why is that funny? What? Why is that
bizarre?
I don't understand.
I had a ton of baby dolls, and most of them were white. A couple were black, but
Was that hilarious? Did people take fucking
that's what
pictures?
I think. It was like, this is what I gotta have because this is all
It was
Their option.
Right.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me.
None.
And so I always like to make the joke, well, she's going to grow up and be a lesbian, marry a black woman, and they're going to have a black baby. So it just seems right for her. Because I like to really make them...
It's really, make this uncomfortable.
Which actually, I think that's probably going to be her reality. So I'll really...
Might be saying the truth and making
them
You're
uncomfortable.
speaking in the prophetic.
Yeah. And so they get real uncomfortable with that. It makes me happy.
Then what else are things that you, whether as a parent or teaching your kiddos, or that was included in your column, especially going back to the differences we're discovering that we're learning in our households?
Yeah, it's wild. Well, I'll start with what I asked you guys about. What do you think of the phrase?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. What do
you think of it?
I don't like
We
it.
forgot.
I don't agree with it. I don't think it's a real thing. You don't see color. What do you do at a stoplight if you don't see color? You sitting there because the light goes from green to red. Those are two different colors.
Mm-hmm.
You do see color.
You're
you
right.
You do see it. There was this guy at my job a long time ago, maybe 20 years ago, and he was asking about my boss. I couldn't remember her name. And he's like, the one, she's short. I said, Janice, the light-skinned black lady. Oh, I don't see color. Okay. How are you going to tell me who? You can't tell me who she is because you don't see color.
Mm-hmm.
You just did not want to say to me, a black person. What's wrong with saying yes? The light-skinned black lady, as opposed to the dark-skinned black lady that works here, or the tall light-skinned, she's the short light-skinned.
Mm-hmm.
But he goes, no. I don't know. I don't see color, so I don't know. She wears glasses. And I said, the light-skinned, short black lady, Janice. Where are you
That
doing
is
that?
the most
That's
hilarious
not a
way
real-
of somebody trying to say they don't see color.
Thank
Are you
you.
fucking kidding me
Thank
right now?
you.
Fucking answer the question.
But at the same time, though, a lot of white people, they don't describe a person as, oh, that white lady.
Because that's your privilege. You don't have to.
Exactly.
We are the whites.
Exactly.
We don't have to
Right.
say anything.
So that they will only say, oh, the one with dark hair and glasses.
Right.
Rather than, but if it's any person of color, you will first describe them as that person of color.
First, yeah.
And that actually has been something that has really frustrated me as a white person, because it's like, well, that's not right. Mm-hmm. So even in my own descriptions, sometimes to other people, I'm like, oh, that white lady with glasses and red hair. Because if you're going to describe everybody else as that, then describe the white person as that too.
Right.
Because you are going to see color, so then just say the color you see.
I do that all the
Well,
time.
and think about it, and perhaps the two of you have seen it with your kiddos. Like with my kiddos, they are noticing, like the littles, they're noticing the 5 and 3-year-old. They'll be like, oh yeah, like this person has darker skin, this person has lighter skin. And they know it, they just don't know the terms that everybody uses. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you're right. There are different shades of skin. Mm-hmm. And we have this, like, it's a Sesame Street book, but they talk about like different eyes and different noses and hair and skins. So it's like obviously a mixture of Muppets and human colors of accessories and like body features.
That's cute though.
But we'll do it, and then they all put their arms in, and they're like, well, which one are we? And then I was like, well, this is confusing, but
our skin looks this.
I know.
Our face looks this.
Because they also knew, they're like, well, our skin, because like the little swatches on the book, they're like, well, we're not this one, which was the white one. And I was like, well, I go, remember, you're part Asian, and they call Asians yellow.
Which doesn't make sense to me.
And Mira has all these questions. She's like, what? And I go, but remember, you're half mom, who's yellow, and you're half dad, who's white. And so having to explain to them, I go, so
but you're not
sometimes
yellow.
People see it, but they
that always
need to
bothered me.
understand what that means. Because I don't want them to have I don't want them to be like me, where their first experience is a fucking stranger saying that to their face. Yeah, so I'm like, let me break this down. Yes. Someone's going to say this to you, so it won't be a shock when you hear it, and you won't be like, why didn't I know that I belonged to this group that everyone else sees except for me?
Well, and that's that important. That's that important.
That's why adoptees have that first glance of what's it like to be raised by white people.
That's what's so important, that being in a social work field and seeing so many children of color being adopted or in foster homes of white people. One of the things that is just so fucking huge for me is that they do teach them about racism. Like, even to my own students, I mean, I'll say, I'm a white woman. I have no idea what it means to be a black man in society. However, I care enough about you that I don't want you to be another fucking statistic or another fucking, just young black man being shot on the street. So we have to figure out how to help you make better choices, because that is how you are seen. And that sucks. Yeah. I can't change that right now in this moment. But let's talk about this. Right. But too often, white people, again, are so fucking blind to their own privilege. They don't see that.
Of that, my white husband is like, I'm just going to leave it to Jaime to teach the kids about that. A, it makes him uncomfortable, and B, he doesn't know.
But he should talk about it. Kurt, you should talk about it.
You should talk about it to learn.
But C is his privilege is I'm not going to.
I don't have to.
I don't have to learn.
You got it.
And I'm like, and I explained to him, I go, this is important. I go, they are going to interact with other white men who don't know. Mm-hmm. You can't be another white man in their life who doesn't know that racism exists.
Right.
Who only sees the human race. And you can't do that.
I have to honestly say, my husband, having been raised around, many persons of color, our best man was your husband, Justin. And, he does such a great job of always recognizing race and talking to our children about race and just saying, this is fucked up.
And he
not okay.
I'm assuming that, because it's always been that way with him.
Right.
Some people a switch goes on maybe at some point in their life and they're starting to figure. But no, he's just like always been that
He's
way.
always done that, and he always has those conversations, which
And
is
that's cool.
one of the coolest fucking things about him is he.
Because it's one thing to be that way, but then when you have children, then what do you do?
Yes.
And he's like, I'm doing the same
And
thing
exactly.
I know to do.
And every time something comes up, like he always tells this story of he was driving in a car and he was the one
I've heard that
driving.
story.
Yeah, and there was 4 black men in the car and they got pulled over and he's like, I actually wasn't fucking doing anything. Like, why the fuck did I get pulled over? And the cop was like, blah 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 blah, and he's like, no, why did I get pulled over? Like I had my turn signal on, I wasn't speeding, but and Joel's like, I realized at that moment it had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with the black men in my car, and I was fucking pissed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is so ridiculous. Got pulled over because of fucking racism.
Mm-hmm.
This is bullshit. Like, there wasn't even anything. There was no reason. None.
Mm-hmm.
And just because I have black men in my car, you're gonna pull me over? How fucked up, you know? And like, he tells our kids that story because he wants them, and they're like, I don't understand. And he's like, yeah, me either. Doesn't make any fucking sense. But I love that we have these conversations in my household
right.
because my kids are like, I don't get
And
it.
as part of that, the privilege that Joel had in that moment
Yeah.
was to be able to say multiple things back and forth to the policeman. Because I tell my boys, they don't even drive. They have no interest in driving.
Yeah,
I've
tell
told
your
them,
boys.
when you get a car, you don't even drive. I'm speaking, you know.
Right, you're only 15.
You get a car, you may have your friends and you're driving and you get pulled over, you gotta keep your hand on the wheel, you gotta have your thing out, actually have it in the visor facing out already so you don't have to reach, you don't wanna reach for anything. Keep your hands on the wheel, the person in the passenger seat, tell them to put their hands up here, you got people in the back seat, they need to put their hands up on the back seat, and they're all gonna think you stupid and you say, fuck you motherfucker, you better do it. So we can get the fuck out of here.
Which is
And then
so
at what
fucking
age-
ridiculous.
But at what age did you start saying that to them?
10. They don't drive at 10.
Right, but
No, but they could be a
and
passenger.
10 is 4th grade. Like, let's break this down for the listeners.
And
Yeah.
I'm telling them
Fourth
about when you start driving. You
Right.
And they're looking at me like I'm stupid.
But
But
then that tells
I
me if
say it
you're
again when they're
having
11.
Yeah.
Said it when they're, and now as they're 15, you may be with people.
Yes.
And so I tell them, if you got the car, you take control of that car.
Right.
And if you're a passenger in somebody's car, you still got to do what I said the passenger needs to do. You still fuck with everybody else. You can encourage them
But
to
see-
let's all do this, but fuck what they're doing.
This
Put
is-
their hands up
Yeah,
here.
but you do it.
Yep, you
but you
do
started
it.
that dialogue at 10.
But
Right.
this is about survival.
Yeah.
This is that same conversation that we're having with our kids about, fucking a shooter comes into their school and you have to survive, right?
And I don't
it's that,
even-
and it's you're just having to have that because you're black.
Right.
I don't even.
I don't have to have
the
that
shooter
conversation.
conversations, which are happening all the time.
No, but the school does.
right. But
You have to have
I
this
have
because
to
you're
have,
black.
like how you're having the conversation about
Inclusion.
inclusion. I have to have about this is what you need to do to make sure you survive, and then I have to say, and you still may not survive. Look at this guy
say
on
that?
TV.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
I look at the guy on
I
TV.
want listener to hear
Yes,
you say that.
I have to say that because look at the guy on TV.
Yes.
If I didn't say it, they'd be like, "Well, that guy wasn't doing anything wrong," and he exact. So I say, you can do everything right.
And do your kids say that? Do they?
They don't say
They're
that part
teenagers
because
too, I
I'm
get it.
telling them,
Right.
I need you to do everything right to always try to get home.
Mm-hmm.
But you may even get killed doing everything right.
Which
So,
it's
Just being honest.
it feels
which
I
goes
get it.
back to my uncle on the curb.
Right.
which goes back to slavery, honestly.
Always back to slavery.
It always does.
Always back to
It goes back to that the white man is in control
Mm-hmm.
and can dictate when you survive and when you don't. Even if that cop is a black cop,
Yes.
an Asian cop, a Hispanic cop, white
Yeah.
cop, doesn't
Yes.
matter. That cop is still following whatever rules
Yeah.
and expectations. And it
And you
just
don't know how they were trained or who they were necessarily trained by and what they're, or they may have been through some horrible shooting thing that has now
Right,
stressed
right.
them out,
They're
and this is how they,
traumatized. Yeah.
exactly.
or
You
they're
don't
just
know.
trying
You don't know that.
to get home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The same concept of just trying to get home.
Right. Their fear, adrenaline's going.
But I want white listeners to really hear, especially my white parents, you don't have to have those same conversations with your children. And it's important to recognize that you don't have to and the reason you don't have to. And then to choose to have those conversations because it's important for them to understand so that they can do better, so that they can be better, so that they can show up better for the next fucking generation, so that Black women and Asian women and Hispanic women don't have to continue to have those fucking conversations for their children to just come home safely. It's so fucked up.
One woman wrote an email to me after that column and said, my problem was, you're taking the time, because I said I need to show them how to, well, I'm not showing them how to be Black men in this world, but basically how to be Black in this world.
Yeah.
And you're going to be a man.
Yep.
You know?
And what that perception
and what
is
goes
when
with
people
that,
see that.
your problem is you're talking to them about being Black in the world.
What?
Just raise them. Just raise them. And I was like,
And that's what my family did. They did. They just raised me as a human race person, right?
Right. And then how well did that work out for you?
Kind of was confusing. But see, I wonder if you do this, both of you moms. My biggest thing, because as an Asian woman, we're always very sexually fetishized. So that my biggest stressor in raising my children is talking to them about consent and talking to them about how they will be perceived. Now, they're 5 and 3, the littles, and then my teenager. So, like, teenager, we can talk more about it, but I'm trying at the littles ages and talking about consent and understanding their bodies and understanding what's safe and good and okay, because my biggest racism always had to do with how I was sexually fetishized and how no one fucking cared. And no one explained that to me. So that was pretty confusing.
Can you talk about that a little bit more?
So there are multiple incidences. There's many I could choose from. So when I was in high school...
What was the youngest age that you remember?
High school was when it started. High school would be when you would hear rumors of like, oh, well, like... Asians' vaginas are shaped differently, so you would want to have sex with them because it's better. But then there was a rumor going around at the place I worked at, and these guys, I guess, had a bet to see who could have sex with me first to find out if that's true or not.
Oh my God.
So then a coworker told me about it. So then I probably had the equivalent of a panic attack at work, but I was 16 at the time, 15 at the time, so I didn't quite understand what was happening to my body. And these two dudes were my friends. We loved working together, you know. We were teenagers, like just being dumb teenagers working at a job, you know. And so I told the manager on duty that night, and I'm like crying. And so we had to like go into his office and I had to tell him what I heard. And he straight up told me, he's like, well, like, he blamed the person who told me the rumor in the first place and said, like, she's basically crazy and I shouldn't have listened to her, and it would just be easier if I just didn't tell anybody about this incident. And I was like, what? So then I went home and I was like, I don't know what the fuck happened. So that was basically what happened at 15.
But then nobody could hold space for you at home because they also don't see color.
No. Well, yeah, I was like, I don't know who to tell, like, what do I say? I think I told one of my brothers, and, you know, the one brother was like, I'll fucking kill him, like, who the fuck was it? And then that wasn't a useful response, because I was like...
That doesn't help me survive in the world.
I was like, that's not really what I'm going for.
To get you some time.
I was like, you're not addressing, like, the confusion. I go, because that was another experience where I was like, I forgot I was Asian again. I forgot until I was reminded. I was like, oh, I thought we were friends, but I forgot.
Oh my God.
That's a very...
Because
What
I
a really...
forget
No,
that I'm Asian a lot
yeah,
until
no.
people remind me. And then I'm like, oh, yeah.
I
don't think about
I like that you're pointing that out, and I want to hear what you have to say about that.
I was going to say that's a very real thing when you are struggling with something internally you go to somebody and they just come with that rage thing.
Yes.
I'm like a kid, and you're like, that doesn't help me at
I went,
all.
I know, I was like, I know, I got a boss who's saying,
their
don't worry
anger,
about it.
yeah.
And I got someone who's ready to murder someone. And I was like, but what the fuck happened to me?
What about
Like,
me?
what was that all about?
You beating somebody up is not...
Yeah.
Unless I came to you and said, hey, I need you to
Yeah.
kick this motherfucker's
That
ass.
was so
Then you're helping.
confusing.
But if I'm coming with
So
something in
confusing.
here and you're, I'll beat his ass. Or, they come with rage
Yes.
instead. And it
Yeah.
doesn't help.
Well, and I do want to point out, because, again, I want our white listeners to really hear this. You had said, I forgot I was Asian until I was reminded. And of course,
so wild.
and I know that same experience, you're reminded that you're a black woman
Every day.
all the time.
Yeah.
People say racism doesn't
Constantly.
exist. I can tell you, I experience
Right.
some
Yeah.
racism
On a daily.
every single day.
And then,
Right.
but I
would
do,
forget.
as
my experience so different.
a
Yeah.
white person, I want to say, what the fuck, white people, when you say, oh, white privilege, it hurts your feelings. Fuck off
Right.
that it hurts your fucking feelings,
Right.
right? The fact that you had to be reminded you're Asian in relationships that you thought we were just friends,
Right.
but oh, wait, I'm Asian, so we can't just be friends.
Right.
Or, oh, wait, I'm black, so I look differently and show up differently in the world, apparently.
Right.
Rather than, these white people who are like, oh, white privilege, the audacity of persons of color to say that. I don't see
Right.
color. Fuck you.
Right.
Fuck you.
That's not real.
Okay? Because color is real.
Right.
And you don't get to dictate the world that everybody else, the lens that everybody else has to be seen through.
Right.
So recognize your white privilege. Recognize that you aren't seen differently because you're white.
Well, and
Recognize
I know
that
was my experience.
and
That
use
was
that.
the point of the column.
Yes,
That
it is.
the
It was the
Use
point.
it.
Which is why I loved it, because as a white person, sometimes I feel guilty being white because I don't feel like I fit in with white people. Because white people are stupid. They really irritate me very much because I don't understand it. I really don't. But I also, I had a friend who is Middle Eastern, and I said, I don't like being a white person. I don't want to be a white person anymore. I don't want to, because I don't like being lumped in with stupidity. And honestly, I feel like a lot of white people are very fucking stupid, and they don't see.
I think they just take it personally.
They do take it-
think when we say white privilege, we're saying you're racist.
Yes.
And
That's-
because that's what my
to
family will
Jeremy.
say.
But I'm
They're
going
like,
to
you're
go-
insinuating.
Okay,
And that's why
as a white
That's why
person-
Jeremy was like,
Yeah.
don't say privilege.
Except as a white person, I'm sorry, you are fucking racist. Every white person is racist. And the reason
It's
is not
systemic.
it is systemic. It isn't necessarily your fault. But there are things, and I don't want to say it, but like fucking my grandpa, he didn't mean it in a racist way, but he used to call those certain nuts the awful name, the N-word toes, right? Oh my God.
I've heard that.
Brazilian nuts.
The Brazilian
Yeah.
nuts, right?
I saw them.
Yeah. So growing up, that's what he called them. So as a kid, I didn't think anything of it.
Because it's
Like,
you
just
knew.
like a raccoon is a raccoon, a squirrel is a squirrel, right? So if I said that, does that make me racist? Not inherently. But if somebody says, what the fuck are you saying that for? I have to recognize, wow. Or like master bedroom. That's one of my favorites. One of my favorite things. And I've been working really hard to call it the main bedroom, not the master bedroom. Because master bedroom, it is slavery. It is,
Everything comes from
it's the slavery term. You had to go to the master's bedroom. And so even though that is verbiage that we use in today's society,
to describe the bigger, nicer.
exactly, right, it's not okay. And so all white people, you are racist if you don't take the time to recognize the way your language and your behavior and take an opportunity to try to see it from another person's perspective, then you are fucking racist. And I'm sorry, you are privileged. Fucking own it. And if you can't own it, then you're even more racist. Sorry. You have to be willing to have these conversations. You have to be willing to sit in your own gunk. Because persons of color, you have to sit in your fucking gunk all the goddamn time. It's not even your fucking gunk. It's white people's gunk.
I'm talking to my kids about how to stay alive.
When a cop pulls them over for speeding.
You can't talk about racism.
Yeah.
You can't talk about like this over-sexualization of Asian American women.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't be willing to say, yeah, that's
when you're
fucked
raising
up.
an Asian American woman, you can't have that conversation
I'm like,
in any
we're gonna
form.
need to talk. I tell that to my husband. I'm like, you are raising children who are Asian, and they're going to get all the Asian stereotypes, whether you acknowledge they exist or not. They're happening.
They're going to
I go, so we have to
So
tell
what are you
them
going to do?
what to expect. I go, your son is going to get all the jokes that Asian men get. Your daughter is going to be fetishized. You
Is that
have
okay?
to accept that exists.
Right.
I go, I've had exes who did that. You know, I had just random strangers at bars do that. Random people come up to you and say that. All of my adoptee friends, we've all had all of it said to us.
Mm-hmm.
All sorts of fucked up shit that like men have done to us. So it's like, this happens. And I go, that's why you have to raise your sons to know how to be respectful and what to know and not know about respect and consent. And you need your daughters to understand that too.
But it's
If
kind
you
of
can't acknowledge that.
right.
Do you want their first experience to be your Starbucks boss telling you that it's just not that big of a deal?
You shouldn't say it to anybody else.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the men women issue of let's teach our women not to dress scandalous and not to walk down alleys at night. And my husband, who has always been an advocate for those who are disadvantaged, he's like, I don't know, why not fucking teach your boys to not rape? Like, why are we teaching our young women that you can't show too much tit or too much ass or you're gonna get raped? Fuck that.
That's right.
Teach your boys to not rape. That it's not okay to take advantage of somebody. That's it. That's the only thing you need to teach. So that's my lesson for my white parents right now is if you say there is no color, if you say color doesn't exist, if you say white privilege isn't a thing, okay, fine. Then teach your white children to respect the realities of other persons of color and to recognize that they are going to have some benefits that other people aren't, and maybe to use their voice to advance other persons of color. And then maybe there won't be, the issues of racism, hopefully down, 100 years from
Don't
now.
have them be Joel in the car getting pulled over.
Yes.
Have your white children not be surprised when they see it
Right.
like Joel was.
Right. Like, oh, this doesn't feel right. I don't like this. And I've not experienced this. I'm experiencing this because there's these black men in my car who have experienced
All the black
that.
guys are sitting in the car looking like,
They're like,
there we go again,
there
right?
we go. Exactly.
Joel's the only one like, surprise, what is happening?
I bet.
It's such a great experience for him because same thing. He tells the story of when he went to a shoe store and he wanted to, his black guy friend wanted to try on a couple pairs of shoes. The clerk ignored him, didn't acknowledge him. And then Joel's like, yeah, I'd like to try on a pair. And the clerk like jumped up and went like, as though like, and Joel's like, I didn't have any fucking money. That motherfucker had money. Like, you chose poorly, friend, but you chose because of the color of my skin.
Yeah, that's the privilege.
But that's what's so important is we have these conversations. You have to have the conversation of how to survive. You have to have the conversation of how to not be sexualized and how to not be seen within your race. I have to have the conversation of you have to recognize where you have this privilege and you have to speak up and you have to not let it happen.
That conversation is way easier than these conversations.
It is. It's one of advocating.
Because yours and mine, it's coming from a place of like
Fear.
This fucked up thing happened to us.
Yes.
And
Trauma.
damn if that happens
Something
to you.
horrible could happen. So let me tell you.
I know.
That's a way easier conversation.
And yet white people aren't fucking having those conversations.
Scary.
It is scary.
Why is that scary? Why is that more scary than the conversations of saying, fucking put your hands up, tell everybody in your car to put your hands up so you don't fucking die when you're getting pulled over?
Because if those kids aren't getting those conversations, those could be the kids that are shooting my son.
Oh, you're saying, I was saying it, why is it scarier as a parent to have that conversation
Oh, I was
with my
saying
kids?
it's scary that people aren't having that conversation.
Well, and
I agree.
You were saying
Scary. I think we had 3 different scaries.
We did have
going
3
on.
different scaries. What's going on? What's
We
your
all
scary?
got freaked out.
A white woman, a black woman, and an Asian woman walk into a bar.
Scared.
we are fucking terrified.
We're all scared for different reasons.
The black woman says, well, I'm scared.
That's what I'm gonna name this episode.
Remember those jokes, though? Remember those jokes?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Black man, a white man, a Chinese man.
Yes. What the fuck?
No.
And it wasn't inclusive.
We're colorblind now, so it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
No, why were you?
3 beige people walking through.
Oh,
I was saying it was scary because you said they aren't having those conversations. So I said
that's
that
what I
is
thought you were
scary.
saying. Yeah, that's what I
Because
thought.
there are people that they aren't getting that.
Yes.
And
That's scary.
that may be the person that shoots my son.
Yes.
That's why white people are afraid to have that conversation, because they don't want to acknowledge, well, if we have it, then what does that mean for us?
Right. Well, because
it means you have it like you've been having it. Nothing changes.
Right.
You still have it. It doesn't go anywhere.
you're literally just helping your children
Yeah.
be a human with other humans.
Your white,
like that's
your
it.
white privilege goes nowhere.
But it kind of reminds me of, the people who have money, or the people who are like, oh, I don't want a prison or a mental health institute built near me, not in my backyard, right? Because I want to feel safe and comfortable, right? So I'm going to pretend like everything is safe and Bitch, if things aren't safe and comfortable for everybody, then they're not safe and comfortable for anybody. And that's the concept that everybody needs to understand. If it isn't safe and comfortable for everyone, then it isn't safe and comfortable for anyone. That's what I try to teach my children. Bottom line.
And things happen when things are supposed to be safe and comfortable.
Right.
Right.
That's when things happen.
Schools. That's a good example.
Oh, fuck. You can't even send your kids to school anymore. Because we can't even get rid of guns. That's how scared we are of having conversations and taking away privilege, right? The privilege of having a gun. We're so fucking terrified of taking it away. And we're going to so quickly, as a society, blame it on black and brown people, when in reality, it's fucking majority white folks.
Instead of talking about guns, they want to talk about, look at all these people coming in across the border.
Right.
And they're
Or
bringing
all
this.
the gang
and they're
violence.
taking over the country and they're bringing all this fentanyl and that.
Nope. White
Right.
racist kids are shooting up schools,
Right.
shooting up churches,
Right.
shooting up whatever.
anything.
Anything and everything.
Because it did just after Columbine, it was like a school thing. It
Well,
was
Columbine was like,
That was
What
the
the-
original.
yeah, no.
That was the
That
original.
was like,
I was telling my
whoa.
boys about that the other day. I said
now-
that was the original. Now it's
there was a movie made about Columbine because it was such a big fucking deal.
it was
And
a
now
huge deal.
we are at 200 and some mass killings.
This year.
Just this year. It's fucking the end of May.
Yeah. But it just kind of used to be a school thing.
Right.
Then kind of a school kind of mall thing. You know what I mean? And then it's just school kind of mall kind of church. School kind of mall kind of outdoor
Any place
festival.
with several people.
Any
A grocery store, our local
Grocery
Target.
store.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about that is I heard recently that the number one killer of white children has now become white people, white shooters. And I didn't look this up, but the source who told me, I fully trust her and
We'll Google it.
and her research. But I do think it's important to Google. I also think
I
it's
do.
important for the white listener to hear the number one, if this is accurate, if the number one killer of white children is white shooters,
I believe it is because the number one killer now of all children is guns.
right,
So shooting those.
right. And I think it's important to recognize
Trail.
this privilege, right? It's not even there. It's not there anymore. Like we're at this point where it's to each their own. We're taking out each other. So why not connect collectively and just figure out how to support other humans being humans and allow their experience to be their experience? You grew up in a blue house. I grew up in a white house. You grew up in a red house, whatever. I grew up in a black house. Doesn't fucking matter. It's all just a house. It's the color of your house. Whatever. Not a very good analogy. As I say it. I was trying to say it like a color of house. Whatever. Stupid. Anyway.
Keep going. You got it.
Nope.
Come on.
Nope. I'm gonna stop. Nope.
Punch through.
Nope. I'm not gonna punch through. I'm gonna admit when an analogy has failed.
Okay, well, I'll say good self-awareness.
Thank you.
I'll say the point of I've written, I think maybe 6 other columns so far, and I always try to write from a perspective of I am a black woman, I am born and raised here in Omaha, I am raising children, and whatever topic I'm talking about, that was white privilege. I even did a column on Malcolm X, and I was saying how I didn't even know Malcolm X was from here until I was 14. I live here because no one was teaching that. And I live right here.
Which is so fucked
up. That's wild. So that was my Malcolm X column, and then my Black History column was like the same thing. I'm like, Black history is American history. Mm-hmm. You should teach it just with history.
Right.
It's part of what happened here in America. Why does it have to be separate? It doesn't have to be a separate thing.
This is how white people experience. This is how black people experience.
That's all.
This is how Asian people experience.
It's American history.
This is how Native people experience.
It's American history.
It is literally all of it.
These are all their experience, and why are we just looking at one, or why are we making up history like with Christopher Columbus? Why are we doing that?
Well, and if you think about it as like a family or a household, no one does that. We all want our perspective seen and heard as a part of the family. My perspective as the daughter or as the wife or as the sister, I want that heard. Yeah. We're not just going to be like, oh, your perspective, that's the one perspective.
That covers it all.
Yeah, it covers exactly how I feel about every situation.
Doesn't make sense.
No.
So each column, I'm trying to come from, this is whatever I'm talking about. This is where I'm coming from. Mm-hmm. This is how that affects me as a black woman. Mm-hmm. And I know you don't know this. So let me share. Yeah.
Educating.
So that's what I try to do.
I love that you do that. How much hate mail do you get?
Not a lot, but some of it is just funny. Why are you pushing back at me telling my experience?
Right.
Because it'll be an experience. I put in whatever I'm talking about. One column I wrote about...
what the fuck are you doing, Sharon? How do you feel about things?
Yes, what are you doing? One column I wrote about the women's basketball tournament. And there was the commotion about Angel Reese doing the thing.
The white woman and the black woman did the exact same thing.
Same thing. And one guy took the time to write like a 12-page letter, which I don't have to read because the stuff is only supposed to come by email. But I was like, this is thick. Let me open it up. And it's to me, about me and how I'm wrong, because I said, I'll be at my son's basketball game. And it goes on. I sit Spike Lee close to his games because I'm in it. I'm coaching. I'm cheerleading. I'm doing it all. So I sit close. Mm-hmm. I have heard boys say, 2 other boys on the court, that your mom up there should show is pretty. That's to mess with that boy. Tell your mom I'll be over right after we beat y'all on this game. That's him saying, I'm going to screw your mom. I mean, but it's to mess with him. They grab their little crotches. They blow kisses at the bench. So I'm saying, I've seen this.
Yeah.
You haven't seen that. That can't, there's no way that's in an OPS school. My son goes to Omaha North. That is an OPS school. Mm-hmm. Why are you just...
Like, where was I? Was I in an OPS?
Why are you just telling me?
You know what? You're right. You're right. Thank you, sir. That was a dream.
So I just
made your experience.
Thank you.
Exactly. That's because he didn't like it.
Exactly.
That's something that always fascinates me.
The experience.
Yes.
Settle down.
Yep.
Settle down.
Mm-hmm. Settle down.
We should do our mugs.
Mugs.
I will start. Mine says, strong vibes, calm mind.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's
She
where I'm
made it
at.
herself.
That's where I'm at. Okay, so what I'm gonna say with this is, as a white person, it is very important when confronting race within our society that we have strong vibes, in the sense that we're not afraid to call it out. We're not afraid to be bold. We're not afraid to point it out and to teach our kids to see racism exists and how to combat it from the perspective of a white person with other white people. And to do so with a calm mind and recognizing that, getting angry and freaking out about whatever, not helpful. So that's what I got.
You did
That's
it.
better than that analogy earlier.
Yeah.
You're doing it, Peter. You're doing it.
You meant my really great analogy of the house
we
colors?
Don't talk about anymore.
Stupid. All right, sure.
I got this for Mother's Day. It's not a mug. It's a big old.
It's a mug. It's a travel mug.
It's a travel mug, and it says "Mother of all things," and it's like the
Yay.
Dr. Seuss. And then on the back are my 3 children, the thing 1 and 2 and 3. So that was my great Mother's Day gift.
I love it. So how does it apply?
Oh,
Yeah, make
it applies.
applicable.
It applies because, this is me here on the front, arms crossed. I'm a mother.
Yeah, girl.
I'm a mother bear.
Fuck
it is
yeah.
my job to protect these 3 things. And my conversations are about keeping them alive. And that's a lot every day.
Every day.
I have goosebumps.
That's it.
Mine is beauty has no skin tone. Well, that's ironic. I just chose because I needed something big enough to hold my entire drink. Beauty has no skin tone. That's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah.
Can I say, before you make your point, when you were talking about it makes no sense that they will say Asian people are yellow.
Yeah.
With black people, the lighter skinned people, they would call them red bone. Yes. To the point, my favorite aunt, who's gone on to glory, her name was Aunt Red.
Did you just call her Gone On to Glory?
She's gone on to glory.
I've never heard that.
I like that.
And I love
Steal
that.
that.
Gone on to
I
glory.
am going to steal that. She's
But
gone
wait,
on
was
to
she
glory.
called that as a child, or are you doing that
She was
thing
called,
again?
no,
Buzzy?
this one she was
I know.
called red
Is this Buzzy
because
all over again?
her skin tone was
Yeah.
about the same color as your skin
Yeah.
tone. And lighter skinned black people, they call them red bone.
Why?
Because they're light skinned.
They're
I mean, they're not
light-skinned.
red, but that's the thing. But that's what they would call them, red bone.
Well,
and so they just literally call her red for sure. Her name was Earlene. Nothing to do with, doesn't start with an R, and then with,
I know.
but it was because of her skin tone.
Because she was
They
light. She was
called
the
her-
most light
was
skinned, so
light
they call her
she-
red.
They called her red, so she was always called red. So then, as I grew up, she was Aunt Red.
Which is interesting how even within that, your family, it almost continued that racism without even realizing it.
Yes.
Almost, I mean, and if you think about, I tell the story of my mom being crazy, and I take back the word crazy, and I say she's crazy, but I take it back because crazy is, just a word, but also a word that can describe everyone. You take back some of that ownership that threw you down in the first place. So it marginalized you in the first place. So it almost seems like sometimes it's that, like maybe she was called red because they were trying to own their marginalization.
I think that too goes back to slavery because the more fair-skinned people
Yeah.
worked in the master's
They're
house,
outside,
and
yeah.
the darker people were out in the. So you wanted to be a red bone, ideally, if or you wanted to, if they were really light because they were mixing when they went to the master's house. You wanted to pass. Actually, you didn't want to be a red
Yeah.
bone. You wanted to pass for a white person if you really could.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
all goes back to slavery. The lighter people were in the house and got treated modestly better than the slaves that were in the field.
Huh.
Because you were all still slaves.
Yeah.
But you felt different in the
Right.
house.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what was that movie with oh my God. Samuel L. Jackson was the head.
Django?
Yes, Django. Yes. No, but how Samuel L. Jackson, he had worked his way to where he was the master's slave. And so it's almost like he tricked himself out of being a slave in his own mind.
It was like he thought he wasn't
a slave.
A black man and a slave.
Exactly. And
Because he would be, what we gonna do, boss? What we think, boss?
Yep.
What we?
You have no say.
But you've ingrained yourself, attached yourself, and he's made you feel good enough to think it is a we, when in reality, no.
And I do think there's still a lot of that shit happening in work relationships and in just a lot of government policies and things. So I just really encourage everyone and anyone to really pay attention to how your company, your agency, everything, how it interacts. I mean, I had been looking at a couple different job opportunities, and there's a few of them where it was like, well, you have like all white people working for you. That makes me uncomfortable.
Can I just say at my job in the newsroom, I am the only black person in the newsroom. Not that there are many people left, but the only one. And if I just started writing columns maybe the past year or two, so if I wasn't, there would be no voice like mine present in the paper at all.
And that's so important.
Yeah, that's interesting too.
And I just have to give a shout out to the Omaha World Herald for, giving you the privilege of writing those columns, because I fucking love your columns.
Thank you.
I do so much. You're such an excellent writer. You don't write them with any malicious intent. You always write them with your perspective, just trying to share your perspective and your truth with love. And I value that so much. And I value that they aren't afraid to allow that voice to be heard.
They encourage it. They do.
And
that's cool.
Even given that they probably get backlash. And so I love that. So anyway, with that, Sheritha, I just fucking love you so much.
Thank you.
So much.
This was fun.
Ah, God. Jaime, obviously I love you.
Do I get to come back?
Yay!
Fuck yes! I'll fucking have you back all the time. We can talk about.
She's just gonna keep me as her guest, so she has a guest all the time.
Every guest Jaime brings, Sheritha comes back.
Yeah, right. Every time Jaime brings a really great guest, I'll be like, well, I got Sheritha.
Don't ever talk to me about I don't have a guest today.
I'll just pull her out of my back pocket.
That's in my pocket, right?
Oh, anyway, well, thank you so much for all your wonderful likes, shares, and subscribes. Thank you for being a part of this conversation.
Yeah.
This is a conversation that should happen on a regular, not something that just happens every now and again.
Yeah.
And, Sheritha made the joke of coming back, but I do think we should probably have you back once a quarter just to continue this conversation, because things change
as
within
our
society.
Kids grow and new fun facts and we keep learning.
Yeah, because you're
And,
not little, so.
You know,
you have a ways to go.
an Asian woman, a black woman, and a white woman walk into a podcast. Let's see what happens. Anyway, we love you so much.
Every Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye.
If you think we're cool,
Or even if you don't,
please like or subscribe so you'll stay up to date on all things The Shrink Show.
thank you for choosing to spend a portion of your life with us. And remember, don't take yourself too seriously. Life is all a giant shrink show.
A Huda Media Production.
Side effects of listening to this podcast may include side aches or snorting from laughter, impromptu jazz hands, nodding in agreement even though you might be listening alone, an occasional "you said it, girl," and mild cases of existential dread. This podcast is strictly for entertainment and informative purposes only and is not intended or implied to diagnose, treat, or otherwise substitute for professional mental health, medical, legal, or other advice. Thank you.